All right.
There we go. Now we should be there. I think we fixed it.
Okay.
We'll see. All right. Now we've fixed all the problems in the world. Now let's talk about you, James.
Let's do let's start.
Yes. Hello, this is
Hello.
James SNIECHOWSKI.
Oh my goodness.
So, James, how did you get started writing?
Well, that's a long story, which I will tell you as concisely as I can. When I was a junior in high school, I went to a Jesuit college prep institution in Detroit. They gave us an English assignment, which was find a picture in a magazine and write 300 words describing that picture. Well, I was at lunchtime and I hadn't done it yet. And there was a punishment for failure to do assignments. It was called JUG, Justice Under God, is what it stood for. Well, if I didn't want to go to judge, which was 1.5 hours after school, reading only technical books like physics and chemistry, could not read a novel even if it had been assigned. So I dashed into the library. I found a picture in the magazine. It was just a pair of eyes like this. The word somber came to mind. I didn't even know what somber meant. I dashed to the dictionary. I looked it up. Seemed like it fit. I dashed out 300 words. What I was really doing to make a point, I was staying out of jug. I wasn't writing an exercise. I was staying out of jug. That's what I was doing. However, several days later, the teacher came back into class with a three-ring binder. He claimed in which he carried the best work of his career. People who did the best work were in his 3-ring binder. And he included me in the binder.
Oh,
I was shocked. Because I did also where I came from, which was inner city, and inner city working class family. If you didn't work hard at something, whatever you produced wasn't worth a damn. Well, I didn't work hard at this. I just dashed it up, and he said it was good enough to hold in his book a best writer of his career, which was a very big deal.
Wow.
But my response, given where I came from, the guy has to be an idiot. How could this be? You know, how could
Was
this
he
be?
a Jesuit, James?
Pardon?
Was this a Jesuit?
Yes, it was a Jesuit. So anyway, that was my first recognition as being a writer, the very first. Then I didn't start writing seriously until I was 75. In the last 5 years, I have produced 4 novels, award-winning novels, and I go back to high school as it's the inspiration for all of that. And I urge people, if you have a feeling you want to write, start writing. Right now. Don't restrain yourself.
I agree 100%.
Right.
That's how I got started, way back then.
Let me just address some of these people. Okay. Trish Pipkin says, hello, I finally made it in. Listen, everyone, we were having trouble.
Technical difficulties.
So sorry. James Ricketts said, hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and anyone else in Cyberland. James says, that's a cool story that you're telling there, Jim. And George Dismuke says, finally. And yeah, George, we were having technical difficulties. Marjorie Daring says, present and accounted
Hello
for.
there, Marjorie.
She said, I thought it was me. No, it was
You
not
can all rest
you.
assured it was.
I'm really glad that you're able to watch us and hear us now, and I'm sure Jim is too.
That was a rough start.
That was a rough start, Jim. I'm sorry. First time you're on the show to have it be like that. And, okay, here's the embarrassing part. Oh, Caleb said, I figured I just hit the wrong button. I don't want to miss any of Jim's stories. Yes, I don't want anyone to miss any of Jim's stories too. But here's the embarrassing part, everybody, is that Jim and his wife have had podcasts and they've been on radio. So of course it was this one that had to have
There
the
you go.
technical
There you go.
difficulties. So sorry
So,
about that,
anyway,
Jim.
glad you all made it. And
The funny part about that story that you just told about him saying it was the best he'd ever read and stuff, maybe he really thought that, because when I was a sophomore in high school, I also went to a Catholic high school. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school.
Of course.
Naturally. And I wrote a short story for a literature assignment, and the teacher said, the nun said that I had plagiarized it from, oh gosh, who writes the Father Brown series? G.K. Chesterton, right?
yes.
Okay. And I said, I did not. I wrote it myself. Now, I read him widely at that time, so perhaps it sounded like or was in the style of his writing, but I didn't plagiarize it. And my parents had to come down to the school, and it was a really big deal. And, well, you know what it's like in Catholic high
Yes,
school.
I do.
So, but no, I hadn't plagiarized it.
So, Jim, you go ahead.
He gave you a nice comparison. G.K. Chesterton was nice. That was good company.
I know, that's what I thought, but it infuriated me to say that my work wasn't my work, because it was my work. Linda taught, Caleb says, Linda, who is Caleb's wife, Linda taught English at a Catholic high school and referred to herself as nun. I at one point thought I wanted to be a nun, Caleb, and my grandfather said to me, you don't want to be a nun. It's none of this and none of that.
So, Jim, you're the author of the Leaving Home trilogy.
Yes.
So
let me bring that up for you.
Let's bring up book one, and maybe you could talk about that.
We'll take it from there, huh?
Back up the other way.
Found it.
This is a fun night.
It is a fun night so far.
Okay.
There, that's it.
This is book one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, let me read it for the people that are just listening.
Good idea.
Okay. It's Worship of Hollow Gods by James SNIECHOWSKI. And it's an Amazon #1 bestseller. Mm-hmm. It's a really pretty cover too, you guys.
Thank you very much. I found a magnificent designer. All three covers are really, really good. They tell part of the story of the book. That's what they're supposed to do. Anyway, this book, these books are autobiographical fiction. And the first book deals with my life at home in Detroit when I was 9 years old. It takes place on a Friday night. On Friday nights, not every Friday, on Friday nights during the month, a family would have pinochle parties, pinochle and poker parties. When they came to our house, they brought food, they brought what they wanted, beer, of course, liquor, of course. And then the women played poker in the dining room upstairs. The men played pinochle in the basement. They made all kinds of noise, yelling and screaming. You would have thought there was a fight going on. Anyway, that's where I start. That book tells that story, but it tells the story of my relationship with my family, with the Catholic Church, with my neighborhood. Growing up in inner city Detroit as a Polish peasant Catholic, that was very specific. I wouldn't call it a ghetto. I think ghetto is too strong. I would call it an enclave. But we within a 10-block area, we didn't go beyond that.
And what was the approximate time period of this?
1950, in the late 50s.
Late 50s, okay.
Late 50s, right.
Perfect.
And What the story is about is how I was struggling with my own perception of what was going on and how I did not fit into that family or the church. I felt I did not belong anywhere. It was a very lonely environment. And I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know how to have a sense of my own self. The task at hand, I know now, I did not know then, was to leave behind all of that emotional atmosphere. You know, the book's theme is the challenge of leaving home no matter your age. People don't think when they leave the place they live in, they move somewhere else, they've left home. Not so. You can move physically from one part of the country to the other part, to the moon for that matter. And you have not left home unless you can understand and leave behind the emotional atmosphere of that originating family. Mine was peasant, Polish, punitive Polish Catholic, old world Catholicism. My grandparents came from the old world. They were all peasants there and here. All the men in my family worked for someone else in factories, one way or another. And my grandparents worked in those factories as well. That's where I came out of. That's what I had to leave behind. If I wasn't,
And you started thinking of all this at the age of 9?
9.
You were a deep thinker.
Wow.
Yeah, I always have been. I was also very much of an imaginer. I imagined deeply. That imagination had a positive and negative. The positive was because I could do it. Negative, it meant I took things in deeply. I took in that punitive Catholicism in very deeply. And as a result, I lived much like animals on the savannah in Africa, under constant threat. There always something bad could happen. I would be punished. Something could happen. I had to learn to deal with all that. That's essentially, that is a thumbnail sketch of the first book. It's called Worshipable Hollow Gods. There were 3 different hollow gods in my family. One was Christianity, the church. The other second was alcohol. Alcohol was pervasive in my family. My Uncle John, who lived next door, was a confirmed alcoholic, nasty guy. And the other was the magnetic attraction of the family, having come back if you left, you had to come back. I had uncles who left for example, to go to Buffalo to work for Chevrolet, came back. My Uncle Ed went to U of M. He got an engineer degree in chemistry. You know, chemistry is no walk in the park. That took a real intellect and a lot of work.
Right.
Yeah.
He got a job somewhere in Ohio, an hour and a half south of Detroit. Damn near had a nervous breakdown, could not stay there, had to come back to Detroit. That was the third pole: church, alcohol, and the family.
Wow. That's difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
As a
Difficult.
matter, I have one Uncle John who was the smartest guy of all. There were 7 brothers on my mother's side and 5 on my father's side. Uncle John was the smartest of them all. During the Depression, he hoboed across the northern tier of the United States, down the west coast to California, to Santa Monica, from Santa Monica back to Detroit. He could not stay in California. He had to come back to Detroit, where he became an abusive alcoholic and miserable man.
Oh.
But that draw was so strong. That's what the book is about. It's the first installment in the process of leaving home.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, because often people say, like, people that are born in a small town and raised in a small town, they want to leave there. They want to get to the city, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And people that are born in the inner city perhaps want to go to the country, you know, to a more suburban setting and see what that's like. But you're saying that the pull of the family was so strong and it was so ingrained that you had to stay with the family that it was difficult to leave, right?
Not only that, Joan, I would 9. Where would I have gone?
Well,
Oh,
you were only
No.
9. Yeah, that's true. That's very
be a
true.
bullfighter.
Stop.
What'd you say?
He said he said that you could have been a bullfighter, but that's because George, who is in the audience, did leave home when he was only 14 and he became a bullfighter.
Wow, congratulations to George. That's admirable.
Yes, he
It
has
is.
had an admirable life, and that's the truth. He was also in radio for many years. He was many things. All right, so the second one, if we can go on to the second one, I'm
On to the second.
4-0 from the first.
Yeah.
Is an ambition. Emotionally, I'm like bereft here. An Ambition to Belong by James.
Book number 2.
SNIECHOWSKI.
Book number 2.
And this
Book
is
number
also
2.
an interesting cover
Great
for those
cover.
of you who can't see it. It's like you're looking through an arched window onto a city.
You're looking through what appears to be a cathedral arch out onto the city.
That's what it looks
Which
like.
was the next step in my life. I had to go into the city. That's when my father, to this day, I regret, I never asked him why. He insisted that I go to the University of Detroit High School, which was a Jesuit college prep high school. I never heard of such a thing. And take a test to get in. Take a test. Oh my God, just down the block there was a high school, Chatsey High. I could just go. I don't have to take any kind of test. I could just go to the high school. Well, I said, okay, my father said, do it. I went, I took the test. I got into the top third of my freshman class. It was called 1C, 1A, B, C, D, E, F. In 1C, I got in the top third of my freshman class. And it was I didn't belong there. That school it began as a service to the suburb of Detroit where automobile executives lived and their sons and their daughters. No, their sons. It was a boys' school.
Yeah.
And so I didn't not belong. I was an inner city kid. My people went to Ford Motor Company. They didn't go to top end. They worked in the low end. My grandfather, for example, worked in the foundry and died of lung cancer because of the foundry. That's who we were. The executives with Grosse Pointe had all kinds of money. That was an entirely different world.
Totally different. Yeah.
Anyway, that book takes place when I'm 13, roughly 13 and 14.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was so hungry to belong somewhere.
Yes.
In my inner city, I joined a street gang, which was called the Royal Lancers. I was a Royal Lancer. And then what I had to do, go to the high school, I had to change into the costume of the high school, which were seersucker pants, multicolored belts. What are the shirts called? The blue shirts, button-down shirts.
Button-down shirts. Yep.
Blue button-down shirts,
Yep.
and sneakers. That was the costume of the high school. Then I went back home after school. I put on Levi's and engineering boots and a gang jacket. I went to a place called the Circle, which was a hamburger joint where we hung out. And there I was a member of a Royal Lance. I didn't belong there. They didn't love me. I didn't belong in high school. I didn't like them. They didn't like me. An ambition to belong was an aspiration. Belong somewhere. I didn't know where I fit. I didn't know how to be.
Wow.
Wow.
We've got a lot of comments.
We've got a
Let
lot
me
of
bring
comments,
some of them up. First, James Rickard says, Jim, you're a great storyteller. Do you use an editor or fly by the seat of your pants?
I use an editor, a wonderful editor who lives in Florida. I think in Tampa. My first editor is my lovely wife Judith, she should have taken editing as a profession, but I tolerate her.
You can give a shout out to your editor if you want.
Her name is Joni
Fisher.
Fisher.
Joni Fisher.
Okay. I
She's
do
somewhere in
listen.
Florida.
Somewhere Florida.
Florida. She is a
Somewhereville.
wonderful editor, smart woman, smart and an author, and really meticulous editor. But before we send the books off to her to be edited, they have to go through my wife, which is an entirely different story. My
There you
wife
go.
is a very good editor.
Now,
Very,
George
very good
says-
editor. And as I say, I tolerate her. Sometimes I don't know what she do. I don't know why. I can't see. I can read a page. There may be grammatical errors, commas, misses, that sort of thing. I can't see them. She
Oh.
sees it, and so when she returns her edit to me, it's like a pain in the butt.
Yeah, well, that's the way we all feel about editing.
Yeah.
George says he left home when he was 12. He entered the bull ring when he was 14.
Wow.
Well, we were partially right, George.
Congratulations, George.
I know. Brave. Trish Pipkin says, I think it's about being brought up in an environment where people are telling you that your place is home and you're not capable of doing anything different. That is
Yes.
hard to overcome, she
It's
says.
hard to overcome because those early impressions constitute the unconscious mind. They are they're primitive and very powerful. The love, what Judith and I call the love grip, the desire to be loved by the parent and be approved of by a parent is
Oh,
not
yeah.
just an emotional
Yes.
feature, it's a survival feature.
Yes.
Those are very deep commitments. It's hard to overcome.
Okay, Chanel says hello. Hi, Chanel. How are you doing today? I hope you're feeling well.
Hello, Chanel.
Chanel is undergoing chemotherapy for bone cancer, so some days are bad days.
Hope it's a good one.
I hope it's a good one. And George says maybe you were talking about Nehru shirts, but I think he was talking about
Just the
button-down
blue,
shirts.
yeah.
Yeah,
The collared
collared button-down shirts. Yeah, because like I said, I was in an all-girls Catholic high school, and I wore the white shirt and the blue blazer and the plaid skirt. And Diamond Greer says, greetings, Diamond. Glad to have you in the audience.
I just noticed that Diamond is watching on LinkedIn. We don't get many comments from LinkedIn. Actually, you're the first to comment we've had.
Yay.
So I want to encourage anybody that is watching on LinkedIn right now.
Say hello.
Say hello. Pop in and say hi. Join in the fun.
Say hi to Jim. So I just want to recap this really quickly for everybody. Worship of hollow gods is the angst that Jim was feeling at the age of 9 and the things that he had to feel like he had to overcome that he just wasn't comfortable with. And then this is when you're about 13, 14, you said, and an ambition to belong is him trying to fit in. And he was put in a Jesuit all-boys school that mostly rich children went to. He was obviously not from that class of people. And he also was in a gang. You're lucky that you didn't become schizophrenic going back and forth between the
Exactly. Exactly. I also am lucky I didn't get killed being in the gang.
That's right.
That is very true.
Detroit gangs were not very nice.
Yeah, not good.
My father belonged to a gang which was known as the Pop Bottle Gang because they fought with broken pop bottles. They were so yeah.
Yikes.
That's
my
not
father did not want me to be in a gang. Of course, I wanted to be him. Being in a gang was just part of the linearity of my development.
Yeah, it's so important for us to get, kudos from our parents and a pat on the back and being told that that we're doing well. I think, at every age that's something that we really want. Even as adults, you want to please your parents, and those are really difficult things. So
Okay.
let us go on to the third book, because this cover, you guys, those of you that are just listening, this is such an interesting cover, okay? It's When Angels Die, and of course it's also by James SNIECHOWSKI, and it shows two hands together. I wish I could, how do
It's
I
hard to
explain
describe.
that? Two palms together, but not in a prayer, but facing outwards. And then there's a man's face on those palms. When Angels Die. What does that cover
Yeah, what's the
signify?
symbolism there?
Yeah.
There is a passage in the book where this book is a deeper exploration of my attempt to leave Catholicism behind, to leave all of that stuff behind. There is a passage in the book where the main character, me, is shocked, has a shock. And the shock is like, I could describe it like if you throw a stone at a pane of glass and it shatters in all directions. And that's what that cover represents, the pane of glass shattering in all directions. And also, when angels die, I don't want to give away the end of the book, so I'll leave that just for people's imagination.
Right.
The cover is the cover designer I work with. His name is Alexander von Ness, Vonness, and he said that's one of the finest cover he ever designed. I was so proud of that cover.
It's beautiful. It really is.
It really is a really fascinating cover. I mean, it's beautifully done.
Yes, it is.
And you can see that shattering effect on the front of the hands going out from the middle, spreading outwards like a
When Angels Die.
sunburst.
And Joan, when you look at it right up the center, you can see the schizophrenic line that runs right up through it.
Yes.
Actually, you can with the two hands coming together. Yeah.
That schizophrenia, I was never actually ever diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I did a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I think just from what you're saying here, okay, one more quick question before I ask the question I just started to ask. How I know I have trouble keeping up with myself. How old were you and was this age timeline when angels die?
Well, my first career was as a professional actor, stage actor. During the 15 years as a stage actor, I did 85 different productions covering Shakespeare all the way to current comedies. And that When Angels Die takes place when I'm about 27 and actually out in the world for the first time on my own, in my own way. And several events occur that lead to the title When Angels Die.
Okay, so we'll not give any spoilers away.
Right.
People will have to read the book to find out what James means. So you were an actor then for 15 years.
Yes.
Did you where did you act?
Well, we were going to talk about that after the book giveaway.
Oh, were we?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know that. You know why? Because
you didn't attend
I
the meeting
wasn't-
because you're
yes.
busy.
You did not do your homework.
I was
forgot to tell her.
busy
That's-
with my children and grandchildren.
Okay. So let's break for commercial. When we come back, we're going to have our book giveaway and we're going to talk about Jim's acting career.
Because I want to know.
I do too.
I'm
I do
sure
too.
people in the audience want to know too.
So
That's really interesting.
we'll see you guys in just a few minutes, okay?
We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Dear Lord, she's still alive.
Who's still alive?
Maris, that's who.
Come on, Angie, that's impossible.
Impossible or not, she's still alive, I tell you. She killed that boatload of people, and she's just getting started. There's no limit to what she will do.
It's not easy to kill a siren. It takes a formula and a plan. Siren Song 2 is the spellbinding sequel to Siren Song. Both novels by George Dismukes.
Siren Song 2 will be on bookshelves and bookseller websites in July. Don't miss it.
People Who Like to Read Want to Get Their Hands on Books by Becca Jones.
Becca Jones, the breakthrough author who tells it like it is. It takes courage to tell a story when it reveals dark secrets. Becca Jones delves deep into the hidden world of sexual abuse. She tells what happened and also tells how she survived.
Meant to Be is much more than just entertaining. Meant to Be gives you a point of reference, hope to cling to, and becomes a guide for survival if you have suffered the same thing. Meant to Be, Becca Jones, a must-have.
Meant to Be is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
And we're back.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. All right, before we even talk to you about where you were an actor, why don't we give people the addresses of where they can reach you? Your website is www.jamessniechowski.com. That's JamesNiechowski. Twitter is Jim E. Sniechowski. I'll get it one of these days. JimESNIECHOWSKI. On LinkedIn, he's Jim Sniechowski. And on email. And email here will show
I
up.
already had that out.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead,
There we go.
Eddie. Okay. There we go.
There we go. I have LinkedIn still on there. Well, that's just, they're both on tickers instead of. Anyway, let's do the book giveaway.
Sure.
I was gonna say.
All right. The book giveaway is the first three people to email judith@judithandjim.com will win an ebook copy of choice of any one of the three books there.
Okay,
And
so
there's the email.
here's the email. Judith@judithandjim.com, JUDITHANDJIM. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's been a rough night.
You got through all of that and the pronunciations on my name.
There you go.
Well, it's a lovely name, and it is my fault completely. But yes, we got all of your information out there, and please let him know right away whether you want a free copy. The first three people will win an ebook copy of choice.
That's if you're watching us live.
Yes.
So, Jim, tell us a little bit about your acting career.
Well, I started in high school, I don't know why. Well, I do have a specific story, which it's told in large measure in When Angels Die. When I was about 14, roughly, I was watching television in the dining room of my parents' home. And as I was watching, I heard a voice in my head say, "You can do that." It wasn't a big booming voice. It wasn't the voice of God. It's just a simple voice that said, "You can do that." I didn't know, unfortunately, I thought it meant you could be an actor. I said, great. I didn't think of anything else. I didn't think I could be a writer. I could be a TV repairman for all that matter. You can do that, it said. Well, that was when I was about 14. It wasn't until I was 18. I went to high school. The plays put on by the school with No Time for Sergeants. Plays, all male cast. And I auditioned, I got the job. A corporal, I think a long time ago, I think the character's name is Corporal Brown. Anyway, he was a corporal who took in enlistees and gave them 2 rounds, circular pieces that they had linked together, figure out how to link together and unlink. My father, who was in tool and die, worked with metals. He made a perfect circle for him. I could make them where it was the first time I was ever on stage for any reason. I thought, well, this is good. This is good. And most importantly, my parents came and they liked it. Or she did mostly. He didn't say much. They liked it. He was proud that he could make the devices that were necessary. Then I left high school. I went to college at the University of Detroit. They have, of course, had their theater department. And they had a play. I don't remember the name of it. Oh, yes, I do. Ondine by a French writer. I auditioned for Ondine. I got a 2-line role. I got on, and then it was fine. I did that. That was one of my second experience. Then the University Theater Department was producing Tennessee Williams' Glass Menagerie. Glass Menagerie has one big male role, and the role, the major role is a role about Tennessee Williams himself and his relationship with his mother. The Glass Menagerie, he had a sister who was crippled, who had a glass menagerie. It was her favorite toy. And I played the guy who came from her brother's factory where he worked, because his mother kept saying, bring someone home for your sister. I was brought home for the sister. No, she had no idea I was coming. The best review I received from that production was from the Detroit Free Press, said he clumped onto the stage as a blundering oaf and left as a sensitive man. That was a really terrific review. It covered the entire arc of the performance. That was exciting for me. And the review from the Detroit Free Press was exciting for me. The head of the department, Jim Rogers, he was the head of the department. He encouraged me. He said, you might want to try this for a profession. Oh, okay, that was not like saying you want to fly to the moon. That was so out of my experience. I said, okay, what do I do? He said, you need to go to an acting school somewhere. I was working at WJBK radio in Detroit at that time. Sitting in the lobby one day was the afternoon rock disc jockey. He was talking as I was passing through. I heard him say the neighborhood playhouse where he went to school. I actually had an impression that's where I'm going. I'm going to that school. Well, I applied and I got in. I got in for 2 years with a teacher by the name of Sandy Meisner, who was a very big name at that time. and he and I did not get along. That my time at the school was not very good. I got out of the school. I got my first job at the Shakespeare Festival in Cleveland, summer festival, where I played. Let me see if I can remember it. Yeah, I played Costard the Clown in Midsummer Night's Dream. I believe that was what it was. Anyway, I gave a 100% performance, made a lot of mistakes. But the director who said to me off stage, says, I respect what you're doing because you do it 110%, even though it's wrong. You do it. I want you to do it this way. I said, okay, I did it. Then I did it that way. Well, it turned out he had been hired by the Loretta Hilton Repertory Theater, professional local regional theater in Webster Groves, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. Well, from Chicago, I went to St. Louis. I was there for 7 years, played a lot of roles, directed students. It was affiliated with the college, Webster College, directed students in their productions. And from there, I had to go Hollywood. That was where the dream originated. I sat in the Senate Theater on Saturday afternoons in Detroit, watching the movies. Where else? Of course I'm going to Hollywood. That's where the dream started.
There
I
you go.
got to Hollywood. And when I got there, first of all, I did not like the business of show business. And I also didn't really know, I was on the Rockford Files. You remember the Rock, just here,
Yes.
here is something. I don't know if you can see that. There's me and Jim
Oh,
Rockford.
yeah.
Oh my
How
goodness.
about that?
That
That's
is
cool.
Agent Ben Bast.
I bet I saw that because
Yeah.
I saw every
We
episode
saw every
of
episode of that. Yeah.
Yep.
One of
Well-
our favorite actors there.
Agent Ben Bast was like a CIA agent, and Rockford had committed some kind of crime or was thought to have committed a crime. I was given the task of going to his trailer on the beach and telling him he had to come with me. And the next scene was I was in a car. I went to an airport, dropping off at the airport, and I said, here's Rockford. And that was my first production. However, I have never seen myself perform. I have never heard myself perform. For any of those of you out there have had this experience, it's horrifying. It's my voice sounded like I was a girl as far as it was horrifying. Then I watched myself. Oh my God, I was overacting. Yeah, it was awful. I actually was so mortified by that experience. I went to my agent, slipped a letter under his door at his office saying, I'm leaving the business. Don't try to get hold. You will never find me. I'm leaving the business.
They're
And
going to send I'm surprised they didn't send Rockford to find you.
Actually, I got three bookings on Rockford after that first one without audition. They just called it. That meant nothing to me. Also, guys, where I came from, the idea of career was never mentioned. You just did jobs. You worked jobs. So I got Rockford Files. Even when I was in the theater, the stage theater, I went from job to job to job. I had no concept how I could use these jobs to build a career out of them. Well, I didn't build much of a career. I'm building it now, writing these books about that. Anyway,
There you go.
I did. It slipped my mind. They're so long ago. Quincy,
Yeah.
Oh, I loved Quincy too.
St. Elsewhere.
Yeah.
I did those shows.
Wow.
Well, hold on a second. There's a few comments here. Marjorie Daring says, senior year, our school play was Winnie the Pooh. Greg Itzen, one of my classmates, was in it and went on to become an actor. There must be something about school plays.
There you go.
And George says, I heard a voice in my head once. I kept hearing it over and over until I divorced her. That was his third wife.
Yeah.
I guarantee
I
it.
guarantee it too. Yeah.
There's more thieves. Oh, George also says there's more thieves per square foot in Hollywood than there are in an IRS office.
Well,
James Rickard says Rockford was Rockford. He was. That was a great show.
It was.
And
he
George
was-
says, James Garner used to complain constantly about getting shafted by the producers of Rockford Files. George was in Hollywood also.
and Jim Garner was a really good man.
That's
He
what
was.
everyone says. Everyone says
That
that.
came across in his
Mhm.
acting, I think.
Mhm.
You know, he wasn't
was a
just
real
acting like a
fine
good
guy.
guy. He seemed genuine. you know?
Everybody
Yeah.
said that about him.
And for example, the reason I left the business, I saw that Rockford Files performance, and I could have committed suicide. My whole dream was to go to Hollywood. I got to Hollywood, it all fell apart. It was awful. I keep saying how awful it was. Then I watched it years later. I got a copy of the video. I watched it. It's a simple little performance. Hi, Rockford, come with me. Here is Rockford. It was simple performance. I thought it was a misery. I left the business. But again, I want to tie this back to leaving home. I couldn't accept that performance because it seemed so simple, so easy. My wife and I, when I met my wife, Judith Sherman, we became therapists, and we are now executive coaches in the tech industry. And we have learned in all the work we've done, the people who have a talent rarely are able to grasp and own the talent because it comes so easily. They think anybody can do this. It's so easy for me. Why do I think it's hard for other people? Well, that's what happened when I got to Hollywood. It came so easily that I could not accept. I didn't have to bust my butt to get it like I was told as a child. That really put a damper on my career in Hollywood. And as a result, I left. And I don't regret it. I don't want to say I left in some way that is regretful. It's not. My wife and I have developed a really fine career with death and psychology has always been one of my passions. Character has always been one of my passions. We have developed, we have make a living in the tech industry talking about character, about how not to do what I did, how not to get stuck in that past and let yourself be free and move forward.
I'm sure you've helped lots of people.
Yeah.
We have.
So that's something to really cherish, you know?
We do. And to be perfectly frank with you, it pays really well.
That's not bad either.
No, that helps too. That helps.
George says that James Garner was a minch. And then he says, a minch is a human, a person with a good heart. Yeah, George, that's what we've heard. I think a lot of people can relate to your story of growing up and breaking away and finding yourself and, feeling good about yourself. It takes a lot of work, though, doesn't it? Yeah, it takes a lot of work to be able to do that. And
you have to dig deep. And one of the problems with digging deep, if you go back to that time when the information came in, it was unconscious, it was demanding, and it was primitive in the sense that there wasn't much intellectuality about it. By the way, just to add an anecdote here, it is now known by child psychologists that what happens with the human brain, one of the first tasks of humans is not to walk or talk, it's to sleep and give the human brain an opportunity to grow and develop. In the very beginning, it's very, very primitive. There's no possibility of assessment, analyzing, concluding, inventing, innovating. None of that happens. You just take it in. This is reality. it's so deep, it's hard to pinpoint. And people think that what you do, you have to go back and find a specific incident. That was traditional Freudian therapy. That is a mistake. It's not a specific incident. It's thousands of times the environment imposes itself on you. It happens all, you're breathing in like you're breathing out in oxygen. It happens over and over and over. That's why it's difficult to identify. It's like a mist or a fog. You look at it and you go right through it. Yes, there is a specific incident that is relevant. That's good. But it's really rare to have one that grounds your whole character in it. It's more this misty stuff. It's where you grow up, where and how you grow up.
Yeah. And we grew up in a time when parents did not show a lot of affection to children.
Exactly.
Oh, George says, James, I'd like to sit down and have a beer with you. I'll bet we could break open a keg of nails. George is relating to everything that you're saying. I do believe.
Thank you, George.
He understands. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, particularly people in our age group, I think, grew up with parents who didn't show a lot of emotion or affection towards their children, and they didn't tell you job well done because they didn't want you to become conceited.
Exactly.
And didn't raise you with a lot of praise and kind of just,
kind of let you go.
Kind of let you go. Yeah. 18 and you were out. Goodbye.
My mother said to me one time that because my mother and father did not have much wealth, they didn't feel like they had anything to give me, so they gave me freedom. Freedom is a poison if you're not prepared to handle it. What the hell? It's like taking a child into Toys R Us who is 3 years old and say, choose. Oh my God, that's overwhelming.
Yeah. Freedom
is not easy to take when you're not ready, prepared for what to do with it. Also, just one other point. You said they didn't know how to love. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother was from the old country. She was a heroine. She was really tough and sinful, sin-oriented. You were shame on you. Anyway, I just saw George's note distracting me. She shamed a lot. My maternal grandmother.
Yeah.
I once said to my mother when I was an adult, I love your mother. She said, fat. I can understand that. There was nothing in her past that would have allowed her to receive that gift from me. Nothing. She had to spit it out.
It's very sad. Yeah.
George says parents were parents, not your best friend. And Chris Chrisman said our generation was raised differently.
What generation is that?
What generation are you? I think, Chris, you're probably young enough to be one of our children, right?
I think so.
That's possible that you could have been raised differently.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, he's 65. Well,
but he had you for parents.
Well, our oldest is 55, but we're not quite there. But yeah, it was tough, I think. I mean, there was not a whole lot of emotion shown, and that's why we had the 60s.
Yeah.
Exactly. For those who remember that, yes.
It was breaking away from all of that. And
the 60s were a national expression of what we're talking about, which is personal expression. The 60s said, enough of that, I have to leave that behind. And it was never really understood if you're characterized as being rebellious. It was far more than rebellious. And so are my books. They are not about rebelling. They're about trying to find a way that satisfies my soul and satisfies my own imaginative ambition.
More about survival.
Exactly.
and satisfies his soul. Chris said he had one good parent and his dad not so much. Well, I'm glad you had one good parent.
That helps.
That does help. Actually, this guy had two good parents.
I had two good parents, but they kind of left me on my own when I was 18.
Yeah,
so
it was like when you're 18,
okay,
you're
bye,
out.
you know.
And also
but they were good people.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were good people. I loved his
So-
parents.
Yeah, they were good.
I miss them both, especially his dad. His dad was a really good guy.
Yeah.
But
So,
You know,
Well-
guys, we're not talking so much specifically about parents. We're
Right.
talking about the familial emotional atmosphere of the family you were brought up in.
yeah,
For
That's
example,
the whole atmosphere, not
whole
just
atmosphere,
not
right.
just one or two people.
exactly, and not just one or two moments either. The
Right.
whole atmosphere.
Trish said she's reading 2 books now about how crucial positive reinforcement and encouragement are. And both teach you how to do it for yourself, how to positively reinforce and encourage yourself.
If that positive reinforcement is sincere, positive reinforcement can also be manipulative.
Well, that's true.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying by that. Yeah, yeah.
Then you're just entrapped, and as any other expression.
Yeah, dangling a carrot before the
Exactly.
donkeys.
Exactly.
Okay, to get them to do something. I see what you're saying there. I think she meant that in the most
She
positive
did.
way.
She did. I'm sure.
The most
I again
positive.
want to go back to my book, saying the task of the books was to leave home, and the obstacle that one confronts in the way of that process. It's not easy, it's not simple, but it can be done. But it's very treacherous if you don't know that that's what's going on.
And as you hinted at earlier, by leaving home, you don't necessarily mean the physical act of leaving home, but you mean the emotional, the spiritual
Yes.
leaving home. Because as you said, you can move to a different place, but you're going to bring all your stuff with you.
Exactly. And when leaving home works, it generally does imply you'll physically leave where you've been, because if you stay where you've been, it's like I said, it's the power of the emotional content will draw you right back. I can remember a time I was living in LA and I flew home to Detroit. It was palpable in me when I left LA in a plane. I got to Denver. I left. I don't remember exactly how I left LA. I would say I was 35. I got to Denver. I was 25. I got to Chicago. I was 15. I got to Detroit. I was 10. That's how important it's like a big suck. It sucks you right back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced that being
To some degree.
children when we're back home. Let me once again show his book covers. Worship of Hollow Gods, James SNIECHOWSKI, An Ambition to Belong, and When Angels Die. And that's what we've been talking about, and that's his journey of leaving home. The first book is about when he's 9. The second, he's 13 to 14 years old, and what went on in both those respective ages. And When Angels Die, he's finally an adult on his own. And you'll have to read the book to see what that entails.
Yeah, they all sound very fascinating. So, James, one last question for you, and you can answer it in short if you want. What advice would you give to, since this is an author show, to someone who's just trying to get started being an author and they're kind of running into roadblocks?
Well, I think for me, the roadblock was primarily inside. Once I started writing, I could at least go to Amazon and publish on Amazon. But Judith and I together have written 8 nonfiction books. And we got sucked into the publishing game. And if you want to be published by a major author, this was 10 years ago. You have to have a reel. You better do audio and video, television, radio, and promote yourself, because they won't do it for you. They will publish you. They're the expense they will lay out. It's a printed book and make it available, but they won't promote it. Don't be shocked.
That's what we're all about, is promoting people,
That's all we
because
can do.
believe me, they don't. They
Do
will
not.
Not a
And
bit.
do not, if
You
you're
have to do it yourself.
if you're a budding author, don't be shocked by that. That's
Never.
a simple fact. Then
And
it
there are-
will to you.
There are a gazillion books out there.
Yes,
Right,
they will.
exactly.
I don't think that's a word, but I may, there
It
probably are that many.
James Ricketts said a great hour. Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
All
thank you
right.
so much, James, for joining
That hour
us.
went by fast.
It's been really, really good. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to move you over. So let me see if I can do it. Thank you so much. Stay on the screen until we come back. Okay, there we go. We'll move you right over. I didn't even have to push very hard. Oh, we have one more comment here. Let's see. George says it's not enough to write a book. You have to be a book marketeer.
That's
That's
absolutely
for
true.
one of
That's
the
it, George.
three marketeers.
And if you're as they both said, if you're a budding author, you need to know that. You've got to know that.
That's
It
right.
will break your heart otherwise.
Yes, it will.
Thank you, Trish.
It was great. Trish says it was great getting to hear your stories, James.
Thank you.
So the first part of our show was kind of cut off.
Yeah.
So
Just the first 7 minutes.
next week, next Wednesday, we have Larry Yoke on. He's a multi-genre author. This Saturday, we have episode 11 on the episode Rewind. Carol Soloway and Wanda Luthman from last year. Don't miss that one. That was a real good episode. And then we have 3 big events coming up. And we're going to have one of those events we're going to show in a little reel here at the end. Excuse me here. Let's go here and get ready there. Okay, so the first big event we want to talk about real briefly here is the week after next is February 23rd. It's our first anniversary show. We have 5 authors and a bunch of giveaways, books and merch. You don't want to miss that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. The next big event is March 23rd, when we have the Meet the Author Voice of Indie crossover event. Those are our 2 podcasts are going to cross over. Stephen G's and Beam Weeks, Voice of Indie podcast. And then the third thing is April 6th is the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles Reveal. The first 3 authors in that anthology are going to be talking about the new deal. So that's basically what we've got, and want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
And we're going to show a little bit about the Rochester Parafest and sign out. So until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.